Welcome back to the official second episode of Inside the Lines, formerly known as the Sportsline Model show. I have Jake and Steven here with me. We're going to be going over some line movement that we've already seen early in the week for both college football and NFL that we think is worth either acting on now or keeping note of, considering the large line movement. So, Steven, I'm going to kick you for now, but me and Jake are going to start off with some college football, some early action we've seen. We'll start with Jacksonville State at Middle Tennessee. This line has kind of gone all over. It's opened up 5.5, Middle Tennessee, then went to 3. It's been a little bit of everywhere, which we find confusing because we like Middle Tennessee a lot. So what do you think the situation is here, Jake?
So first off, I got to say, I like that new intro. That was pretty cool.
Right.
And then for this game, there's 2 Wednesday games this week, this game and one other. And today's already Monday, so consider this like a Thursday and the game's Saturday. It's 2 days before. There's a lot of line movement just because the game's so close. There's a lot of betting action that's swaying the line. And we like Middle Tennessee State, and you could get it as low as -3 if you go shopping around. And that's probably, I don't think it's going to go lower than -3. Jacksonville State they beat Sam Houston State, but they allowed 28 points to a Sam Houston State team that was allowing 3 points, that was scoring 3 points per game. So this line has been all over. I think it's just because of regular movement before the game.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess if you, not us personally aren't backing Jacksonville State, but if you do like them, this is kind of an act now spot, right? To get them in this situation.
This is probably a good arbitrage spot. I know Steven likes. I don't know because -4 is a key number that could come in between. But if you could get like -5.5 and then -3 and get somewhere in between, it could be a good arbitrage spot. I would definitely lean Middle Tennessee State, and if you could get that at -3, I would take that there because I don't see it going to -2.5.
Right. Yeah. That's a good spot there. It's in one of those games where you're going to want to shop for the best price based off what you're looking for, because again, it has been all over the place. Let's move to Purdue at Iowa. This line opened at 3.5, now at 2.5. Assuming a lot of this has to do with the Cade McNamara injury, you would think that if he was fully healthy, this line would be more around 4.5.
Yeah, I think it would be around 4.5 if McNamara was healthy, but we saw Deacon Hill go in, and he looked just as good as Cade McNamara, which isn't great at all. He looked like an Iowa quarterback in there. I think he went like 50% completion, 110 yards, and 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So classic Iowa quarterback numbers right there. I think this movement is assuming that McNamara is out. He was carted off. When a guy is carted off, I think you have to assume that he's going to miss the next game.
Right. And we saw the public consensus change from Iowa 50% to Purdue 56%. So a game to keep your eye on for there. Of course, through the week, we'll have more answers for injuries, and we will be able to give better advice based off that situation. Let's go to the West Coast. Washington State at UCLA. Again, another game that's seen a lot of line movement. We saw, I think it opened at 3, then went to 3.5, then back to 3. So a lot of movement here. What is your best advice given this line in the movement?
Yeah, we're getting some reverse line movement here. The public's almost 70% on Washington State, which makes sense considering they are undefeated. They beat Oregon State, and UCLA lost to Utah, who just lost to Oregon State, who Washington State beat. So if you use the transitive property, Washington State's a lot better. Our sims are actually taking the DTR into effect here, so we have some decent value on UCLA, and it's going to keep happening until we get further into the season. So I had to go ahead and downgrade that. I see this alternating throughout the week between -3, -3.5. I think the sharp money is on UCLA right now because they've been a good home team, but the betting public is favoring Washington State here. So I think somewhere between 3 and 4 it's going to close. I don't see a ton of line movement just because there's also a lot of unknowns here.
Right. Let's go to Northern Illinois at Akron. Went to 3, started at 3.5, moved to 4, and then we've started getting some money in on the under. Went from 47.5 to 45.5. This is a spot you'd probably want to act now on NIU, right?
Yeah, so if you like Northern Illinois, I think you should act now because Akron's quarterback was carted off last game, DJ Irons, so they're going to be on their second string. They just lost at home to Buffalo, who's one of the worst teams in college football. NIU almost upset Toledo on the road. And the big question last week that we talked about was whether or not Rocky Lombardi was going to be healthy. And he looked pretty good against Toledo. So I think, yeah, this is a perfect act now if you like Northern Illinois, and we like Northern Illinois.
Right. Yeah. So one of a few plays we like for the act now. We will have a recap screen at the end for these plays that we think if you like them, Monday is now the time to get them. We'll go to Wake Forest at Clemson. Clemson's already moved from -20 to -21. We lean Wake Forest again, but the model, for people who don't know, takes into account data from last season. So they obviously still have that Sam Hartman effect going. So from your personal opinion, regardless of the model, what do you think about this spread?
Yeah, I think it's only going to go shift towards Clemson. Clemson looked pretty good last week. They have a true freshman wide receiver, Tyler Brown, who's been awesome. And Wake Forest has looked bad. They should have lost to Old Dominion. They got blown out the next week. I think that I can see this going beyond 21. I can see it going to 22. So if you like Clemson, this is an act now spot at 20.
I got to get like an act now button. I got to get an audio for that. Stay tuned for later in the week. But we were talking about earlier, obviously Wake Forest isn't the same as they were last year. However, they're not terrible and they do like to stay in these games. So we were saying, since they like to get off to a slow start this season, which they have been, this might be a really great live line, nail the Wake Forest plus the 31 after that first quarter. I think this is a backdoor cover type of team. So if you like Clemson, I think this is a great act now spot. But if you like Wake Forest, you might have a lot of value waiting to live bet on this game. So let's move over. Georgia Tech at Miami. Lines move from -20 to -21. This, I think, will keep moving towards Miami. No one watched that Georgia Tech Bowling Green game at home, but Georgia Tech was favored 20 points. Am I right?
Yeah, I think they were 21-point favorites.
Yeah, and they lost.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. They
right.
Killed Bowling Green. So
once people start to realize that, they look at the box score of that, I think Miami's just going to keep getting flooded with all the money. So this seems like a spot. If you like Miami, it's time to do that before people start to realize what happened over the weekend with Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I think this is right in line with the game before with the Clemson game. I see it just moving towards Miami as we get closer to the game. Especially, I didn't even realize Bowling Green and Georgia Tech were playing until I saw the final score. I'm like, was that real? It certainly was.
Yeah, so this is the type of game people will start to do their research and this line will move. So we suggest acting on that now. So that is really all we have for college football in regards to lines that mattered and lines to act on now. Again, we'll have a recap for that at the screen. But we will now move into NFL. So I'm going to take Jake out into the chat, continue to ask us questions. Jake's happy to answer those. We'll bring in Steven for our next round. Now, I want to talk about quick, me and Steven talked about look-ahead lines last night and lines that have reopened, value we saw, and we've been pretty spot on with all of that. So 2 games we weren't able to talk about. The Chiefs laying 5.5 at the Vikings in Minnesota. I don't know why you wouldn't. If I was old enough to have a mortgage or a house, I'd put the house on the Chiefs minus the 5.5. Patrick Mahomes in a comeback spot. That just seems not comeback, but after a game playing like that, he's going to come back even hungrier. So what do you think of this line? Do you see it moving? Do we like this line here?
The model loves the Chiefs. The Chiefs over the last few years have actually scored more on the road than at home. I mean, and last night was a weird game with going up 17-0 early. I think they just turned off. And I think that bodes well heading into next week because they'll be on their toes more. And Minnesota is not a good defense. And then if Mahomes runs it in at the end, instead of taking a knee, they cover the spread, actually, and the whole world changes.
Right. So another game we now can talk about, the Jets at Denver. This line opened at 3.5, moved to 2.5 now that America has decided they're in love with Zach Wilson, which is fair. And then we also see the line move from 40.5 to 43.5. There are some 42s out there. That line's a little all over the place, but you see the Jets have a big offensive night relative to what they've been. The Broncos defense just looking terrible, so that you can see why that line moved. We like the under in this game, I believe. Where do you think this line is? And are either of these, the spread or the over-under, something you want to act on now?
No, I mean, I'd stay away from this. I mean, I'm seeing -2s now for Denver. Yeah, again, I think there's a little too much love for Zach Wilson. I think, Denver's defense obviously is not good, so I wouldn't trust. I understand from a sample size reason and more about how bad the Jets offense usually looked until midway through the second quarter last night. So I could see the model would have value on the under, but I don't trust the Broncos defense at this point. So whatever you do, wait to shop around, find the best price, because the prices are all over the place already.
Right. And this doesn't seem like a total that's going to become some tight, concise number anytime soon.
If you like the under, you'll find a 43 somewhere, probably at kickoff. And if you like the over, you'll find like a 41 somewhere else, 41.5. I don't know what the weather is looking right now, so that could be an issue. But I mean, I would assume that Zach Wilson has some experience in a similar environment playing at BYU. Yeah,
and this will be a game we certainly address later in the week when we feel like there's some more value on it and more information to be had. So Steve and we went over a few numbers last night. Some of those that we liked that we said to act now have already moved even further, including Chicago at Washington. They reopened as 5-point favorites. Now it's moved to 6.5. We still feel pretty strongly about this. I think we'd still advise to take it at 6.5, but that's an act now, considering this could move to 7, and we don't want to get to that ugly number of 7.
Yeah, very surprising for a Thursday night game, because usually even if a team is much better than another team on a Thursday night, they know it's short weeks, weird things can happen. It reminds me of like when the Giants had that comeback against Arizona and they had to go to San Francisco. The line was a little tighter than you would expected had it game been on a Sunday, because people thought it's a short week. But man, people really are believing the Commanders. I think it's also the defense of Washington has an old school, coordinator that people are furious with. The offense has been scoring 30 points a game, but the defense has been allowing over 30 points a game. Right. I think the pressure and the schemes that they'll run will actually impact Fields. I have a theory that old school defensive coordinators look to get pressure on the quarterback. That used to work in the old days when there were 3 good quarterbacks, but now there's like 15 good quarterbacks and 10 okay ones. So, and so Fields, despite what you saw last week, still qualifies as the not okay, not good. So I think it'll work.
Right. Another game we talked. Yeah. Sorry. Another game we talked about was the Jags at Buffalo, which is in London, where Jacksonville just played. So you would. In my head, I'd call Jacksonville the home team. But regardless, people seem to be more impressed with Buffalo's win than Jacksonville's win. So this line has moved in Buffalo's favor. So if you do like Buffalo, not that I'm saying that's necessarily the right move, if you do like them, we advise to take this line now before it moves any.
We actually really love Buffalo in this spot, even on the neutral field. They a lot of concerns over no Poyer last week, and then Tre'Davious White getting probably a season-ending injury. But that didn't stop them from handling Miami's offense pretty well. Jacksonville had a better offensive performance, but that was against the Falcons, who have no pass rush. And Buffalo might have Von Miller back. But they also have, I think they're still leading the league in sacks even without him. So what saves Jacksonville is maybe Trevor, who's been running a little bit more, can run away from some of those blindside hits, which result in a lot of fumbles. Right. But I still like Buffalo in this spot. The line is up to -6 in some spots. So, get it before you have to pay 6. Well, you can still get it at 5.5.
Right. Another line that has moved bizarrely in the team's favor, the Ravens in Pittsburgh go from 2-point favorites to 4.5. It's a very bizarre thing for a divisional rivalry on the road to be anything close to that. Now, some books even have it up to 5.5. So get the 4.5 if you can, if you like the Ravens. But that's a pretty big number for this type of matchup in a division.
Yeah, I saw multiple book, more than one at 5.5 just 5 minutes ago. Now I only see one at 5.5. So I think the edge will be 5. That will be the limit. Maybe down to 4.5. I mean, it's just one of those historical things where neither team is usually favored by more than 4 when their best players are playing. And in this case, Pittsburgh's best player is TJ Watt, not their quarterback. So Pickett not playing isn't going to be the big line mover. And Lamar's playing obviously for Baltimore, and so that's the big line mover on that side. So the model actually still likes Baltimore, even at that big number. They've been playing better on the road against division opponents this year than at home. So we'll see. But it's I think that this is safe. If I were a Baltimore backer, I would still wait for it to come down. I'd still wait for the narratives and all the trends coming out. Like no team has ever, all the trends start coming out as far as how close this matchup has been historically.
Right. Before we move to our last game, question in the chat asking about Monday Night Football, which feels fair to address. Seahawks Giants. Do we have a prop we like? Maybe a side we like? Any type of value?
I love the side when the Giants were actually moved to slightly -1 favorite before Saquon was ruled out, and now it's all the way to Seattle -2. We're at Seattle -3, even with Saquon in there. Now it's -3.5, just because. We knew Saquon, if he was playing, wouldn't be 100%. So that was kind of baked into the line. So I do still lean Seattle. The impact going forward is if Seattle puts up 25 or more, their team totals on 24.5, then I think that Miami versus Giants game will go from a 49.5 to like a 51.5 over under.
Right.
And so that's with our new theme of Inside the Lines. That's kind of what I'm already on to the next thing. Been there, done that. Seattle Giants, that already happened in the past in my mind. I don't have the latest prop lines on this game. Actually, maybe I do. Let me pop it up real quick.
Yeah, you can add it if you want.
Jumping out, maybe. There's some value again. I didn't do a deep dive on Charbonnet if his line's at 24.5, that low.
There you go.
And Breida, Matt Breida, assuming he gets the starting looks, he has not much of a receiver, so depending on if you can get his line at like 15.5 or higher, then maybe, an under there, even though he's the starting running back. Right. I just think that Daniel Jones will use his legs rather than a check down toss to a running back.
Right.
I think the Daniel Jones rushing prop, which used to be a good number, is probably too high at this point.
A lot of people in the chat asking about Daniel Jones rushing prop.
Well, 34.5, I like it. If it's still 34.5 or anywhere close to that, then I like that because we have him 42.
Right. Yeah, so that's a value we have there. Some questions about Kenneth Walker. These lines that we have in projections for our player props are all on the Sportsline website under DFS projections. So you can find the answers for all those player prop questions there. Want to move to our last preview of next weekend with Cincinnati open as they were 8-point favorites in the look ahead, reopen at 7-point favorites, now all the way down to 3 as we suspected. A lot of this has to do the public's kind of finally turning on Joe Burrow and accepting what he could be right now. And then Derek brought up a great point that the Browns, the old Browns quarterback coach is now the offensive coordinator for the Cardinals. So he's played against this Cincinnati defense plenty of time. Seems like the public money, smart money, our model are all on Arizona. And it seems like that line has moved a lot. So what do you think of this line now? Is it something you need to act on? Is it kind of a wash?
I think it's too late. It's amazing. It really is amazing for a team that had such success last 2 years, like Cincinnati, goes to a team that just lost by 19.
Right.
And remember the look ahead line before yesterday was Cincinnati -8. Then once Cincinnati came out, and I noticed that once they were down like 14-3 or whatever, it was at -7, then reopened at -5, and now it's already down to it's -3 pretty much everywhere. You can still get 4 a few spots, but it's a historic shift, and it's not just because T. Higgins is probably out. He's not worth that. It is because everybody except even Jamar Chase is down on Joe Burrow right now.
Right. Before we hit the recap screen, wanted to address this. Texans Falcons. This line opened. Houston were 3.5-point dogs. That's when we were all over it. That was great value there. It's crazy how much that line has moved. I'd say we still favor Houston, but certainly a lot of that value has gone down the journey since
we got Sunday. Nothing. It's not like it's basically a pick 'em at this point, which is pretty amazing again for Houston. And before this call a few hours ago, I got pinged from one of our NFL writers who's putting a piece together on how much better Arizona and Houston have been versus expectations. And I sent him the numbers that we had before the season and now. So yeah, if the narrative and momentum around Houston and Arizona's vibes, you think it's big now, wait till the CBS machinery starts putting out articles on it. Then they'll start really hit the masses. So shockingly, yeah, Houston, who are, again, I'll reiterate it, our best value to win over their season win total was the Houston Texans.
Right.
Because they went from being a historically bad run defense. We knew that with Will Anderson and D'Amico Ryans, they'd be probably at worst a below average run defense. And by fixing that, by making a obvious hole just okay, is actually the best way to keep, again, it rests your defense, gets them off the field and everything else. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that Houston pick right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's hit our recap. Look, if for Monday, these are picks. If you like these teams, you definitely want to act now. I'll recap for our audio listeners, but Northern Illinois, if you like them, take the -5 right now versus Akron for that Wednesday night game. University of Miami versus Georgia Tech, laying 20.5. Again, once people start seeing that box score of the Georgia Tech Bowling Green game, that line's only going to get bigger. If you like Jacksonville State, take the +4 at Middle Tennessee while you can now. And then as far as the NFL, Baltimore spread only getting bigger, so -4.5. Honestly, it probably will hang out around the spot. I don't think we see it getting any higher than 5, but take that while you can. Washington -6.5. Once that gets to 7, it gets a lot uglier. So take the 6.5 while you can. And again, Kansas City, to kind of redeem themselves from a little bit of a sloppy game in Minnesota, I think that's a great pick there for now. So those are a recap. Tomorrow, we will be going over more of when we have some more injury answers, a lot more college football heavy with a little more overreactions in the college football world. We'll see how those lines continue to move, give more advice based off injuries and impact, things like that. Through the week, Wednesday, John and Jake will take over for MLB playoffs, and then we'll hit some more totals and spreads on Thursday, and of course, our prop party on Friday. So with that said, that's all we have time for now. Again, we are tomorrow at 1 o'clock as well, 1 o'clock all the way through Friday. So we will see you guys tomorrow, and ask us all your questions on Twitter.